Hey, it's Aylward here. Thank you for joining me. This is super excited. This is the first ever episode of Will's Book Club. So this is going to be an ongoing thing. It's a chance for me to share with you my favorite books, the books that I've read, the books that have had the biggest impact on my life. So if you know me or if you don't know me, I'm going to tell you I love to read. Massive bookworm. I really read to learn. I'm not a big fan of fiction. I do read fiction occasionally, but really, I read a lot of personal development style books. I read books that I feel will give me the tools, the insights, the stories, the inspiration, the motivation, all of that sort of stuff. It will give me that. And it's also tools and stories and inspiration that I can also hand on to the people that I work with. So I'm sort of known for sending books to my clients. One of the first questions I ask somebody once they've hired me as their coach is, give me your address, because I will be sending you some gifts. One of those gifts will definitely be a book. So how is it going to work? I'm really for simplicity. I want this to be really clear, really watchable. So it's going to be split into three parts. The first part of every book club video is going to be who I believe this certain book is for, because I think there's a certain type of person. When people write books, they write it with a certain person in mind. I know a lot of authors, I know a lot of coaches who have also written books. I know book coaches. Yes, there are book coaches out there. And they say, write this for a certain person. And a lot of people write books for themselves. A lot of people write books with a certain friend or a certain person in mind, knowing that this will be the person who will get the most value from reading it. So I'll be sharing each episode who I think this book is for. Next, part two, that's a three. Two is going to be my summary of the book in just 3 words with a very brief explanation of why I've summed up those book in those 3 words, just to give you a bit of a feel, a bit of an idea for that book before going to step 3 or part 3 of the book review video, which is going to be my 3 biggest takeaways, which I think I'm really going to struggle with, because with a good book, with a really good book, almost every page there's a golden nugget, or there's something, whether it's a quote, whether it's a piece of the text that just really resonates. So I will be doing my absolute best to narrow this down just to 3 takeaways. And as well as that, maybe adding some extra tips, giving some extra ideas about how you, the person watching, can implement these ideas into real life, because that's what it's about. A real good book, or any insight, whether it comes from a book or a conversation or a video or something on Facebook, doesn't matter. But what really makes the difference is taking that insight and living it, applying it in some way. So I will be doing that as well, sharing these insights, sharing these golden nuggets from the best books I've read, but also talking about the next steps, how you might be able to implement that or experiment with this new idea. So the first book is this one here, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I read this year, earlier this year, in the start of the summer. It caught my eye just because very colourful, and this got me, Creative Living Beyond Fear. Now, Elizabeth Gilbert, I know the name, you may know her as well. She's famous for being the author of Eat, Pray, Love, which of course has sold millions and millions of books across the world. It's considered one of the best books of recent times. Shamefully have not read it, but everyone I know who has read it has said, it's a life-changing book. So this is her new book, Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. So to start off with, who is this book for? Now, this is quite an easy one for me to answer. On the front page, it says, a must-read for anyone hoping to live a creative life. And this is really a book for you if you identify yourself as a creative. So I think actually anyone who is in entrepreneurship, anybody who has their own business, would benefit from reading this, because I think as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we have to be creative. There are times we have to put on, as my mentor would say, our marketing cap. There's times we have to put on our customer services hat. We play all these different roles, which really requires a great level of creativity. Of course, if you are a musician, this book is for you. If you are an artist, whether you're a painter, a poet, a writer, anyone who wants to live a creative life and deals with creativity. And I think that's really most people. I think we all have creativity. We're all faced with challenges, and actually creativity is one of those brilliant tools that if we tap into that, can help us to come up with those solutions. But really, this is for, like I say, musicians, this is for poets, this is for entrepreneurs, this is for people who on a daily basis are inspired and they create things, whether it's a podcast or a book or a song. That's a telephone, please ignore that. And yeah, this is for creatives. So that's part one. Nobody ever rings. Nobody ever rings the home phone. As soon as I'm doing a video, somebody's doing it. Anyway, the show must go on. So that is who the book is for. Secondly, I think the book in 3 words. I've said gripping. And I say gripping because this is a book that, for me, I wanted to get through. It was so valuable. So many books, they go along at a certain pace, but this book is really gripping. It's quite bite-sized, so it makes you want to read on. So that's the first word I've used, gripping. The second word is clear. There's lots of stories. I think a lot of good authors, or any good author, is also a fantastic storyteller. So they embed stories into the book to communicate ideas or communicate lessons. And Elizabeth Gilbert does this fantastically well, which makes it this really enjoyable and a really clear read. The third word that I would use to summarize this book, like I say, I give this 3-word summary just to give you a really brief overview. The third word is relatable. What I love about this book, and I think I'm a big fan of Elizabeth Gilbert herself as a person. You really feel that you get to know her because she's so open. She shares her vulnerability. She shares, as well as her light, she shares her dark. She shares her fears. She shares her stories of crippling doubt. And she's very real when she says to write a book after writing such a best-selling book, Eat, Pray, Love, she felt a lot of pressure, and she very openly expresses this during the book, which makes it really relatable. And I think, sometimes it's really easy to put people on pedestals. Authors, people who are successful, our managers, bosses, parents, whoever they are, we tend to put them on a pedestal, but I think we forget that we're all equal, right? We're all completely equal in this world. And I think especially the famous celebrities, people in the limelight, we can, sometimes imagine that their life is just a breeze and it's so easy and they're without struggle. But actually, like I say, we're all human, we're all equal, we all suffer, we all have challenges, we all have good days and bad days. And Elizabeth does a really great job of just sharing all of this. She's really relatable and really likable as well. So that's my third word to summarize this book, which is relatable. So that is the second section, the book summary in 3 words. So now we're really going to dive into the book. I'm going to be reading from the book very briefly. This isn't going to become story time, but I'm going to be reading a couple of passages from the book and offering my thoughts on why this is my biggest takeaway. So first of all, I'm going to be reading from the start of the book, which is from a part called Creative Living Defined. And it starts like this. So this, I believe, is the central question upon which all creative living hinges. Do you have the courage to bring forth the treasures that are hidden within you? Look, I don't know what's hidden within you. I have no way of knowing such a thing. You yourself may barely know, although I suspect you've caught glimpses. I don't know your capacities, your aspirations, your longings, your secret talents, but surely something wonderful is sheltered inside you. I say this with all confidence because I happen to believe we are all walking repositories of buried treasure. I believe this in one of the oldest and most generous tricks the universe plays on us human beings, both for its own amusement and for ours. The universe buries strange jewels deep within us and then stands back to see if we can find them. The hunt to uncover those jewels, that's creative living. I'll stop there. So this totally resonated with me because as a coach, I speak to people from all different walks of life. And I really believe that we've all got that thing. We've all got something which is our zone of genius. It's something that we do really, really well. And it's something that we're often, or nearly always, so passionate about. And I think Elizabeth makes a really, really clear point that this is the real question we have to ask ourselves. It's not, am I good enough? It's not, do I have these talents? Do I have that thing? We have that thing. We realize that. We may have had glimpses of that. We may have been tapping into that for some years. But the only real question we have to ask ourselves is, do you have the courage to bring forth the treasures that are hidden within you? So take that question away. If you take anything away from this book club video, then ask yourself that question. Sit down and be really honest. Are you being courageous enough? Are you, or have you made that decision that yes, I'm doing this, I'm tapping into those treasures, I'm going to go inside and just explore, see what's there. So that's my first big takeaway. It's on page 8, so already just starting with really great insight. So now, the second takeaway is here, and it's from a chapter that's called The Tiger's Tail. So, one of the best descriptions I've ever heard of this phenomenon, that is, of ideas entering and exiting the human consciousness at whim, came from the wonderful American poet Ruth Stone. I met Stone when she was nearly 90 years old, and she regaled me with stories about her extraordinary creative process. She told me that when she was a child growing up on a farm in rural Virginia, she would be out working in the fields when she would sometimes hear a poem coming towards her, hear it rushing across the landscape at her like a galloping horse. Whenever this happened, she knew exactly what she had to do next. She would run like hell towards the house, trying to stay ahead of the poem, hoping to get to a piece of paper and a pencil fast enough to catch it. That way, when the poem reached her and passed through her, she would be able to grab it and take dictation, letting the words pour forth onto the page. Somehow, however, she was too slow, and she couldn't get to the paper and pencil in time. At those instances, she could feel the poem rushing right through her body and out the other side. It would be in her for a moment, seeking a response, and then it would be gone before she could grasp it, galloping away across the earth, as she said, searching for another poet. I thought really captivating story, like really vivid. You can really imagine that you're there. And I thought this is a really nice way of describing that moment that inspiration strikes, because you know what it's like. You're often doing something not creative. So you're having a conversation with somebody, or it's the middle of the night and you wake up and you're trying to get back to sleep. Or for me, I'm in the shower and suddenly you get that inspiration, you get a creative idea. And I think what this story highlights is that they're very fleeting. The ideas, the inspiration, they come and go. They're not things that stick around. So really, we have to be one step ahead. And the way that I like to do this is to have one of these, to have a journal with me at all times. If I'm going to town and I am going to be in a coffee shop, I will take my journal, not because I necessarily have to use it, but it may be that during that bus journey to the city, or maybe sat there whilst I'm just looking around, people watching, which by the way is one of my favorite things to do, I will become inspired, and I want to be prepared. I want to whether it's an idea for a blog or it's some training that I want to do, it doesn't matter, but I will get inspired and I want to make sure that I'm prepared. So I'll have a journal to hand. So this is something that I'd really, really suggest to you. If you're somebody who really relates to this story, has these ideas, but they never seem to stick around, you have a really good, solid, inspired idea, but you wake up the next day and it's gone, then have a journal, invest in a journal, get a good one, get something you can carry around with you. Or if that's not possible, use the notes section on your phone. So I use my phone as well. Really, really simple way to capture those thoughts. Because let's face it, sometimes they can be around for a few seconds before we forget them. Because, these ideas, they don't last. They're very, very fleeting. So I loved this section here. And that is section number 2. That's takeaway number 2. So the final biggest takeaway from this book, which I'll show up once again if you want to go out and buy this big magic, really colourful looking book, which caught my attention, is from a chapter titled Permission. And it goes like this. I have a neighbour who gets tattoos all the time. Her name is Eileen. She acquires new tattoos the way I might acquire a new pair of cheap earrings, just for the heck of it, just on a whim. She wakes up some mornings in a funk and announces, I think I'll go get a new tattoo today. If you ask Eileen what kind of tattoo she's planning on getting, she'll say, oh, I don't know, I'll figure it out when I get to the tattoo shop, or I'll just let the artist surprise me. Now, this woman is not a teenager with impulse control issues. She's a grown woman with adult children who runs a successful business. She's also very cool, uniquely gorgeous, and one of the most free spirits I've ever met. When I asked her how she could allow her body to be marked up so casually with permanent ink, she said, oh, but you misunderstand. It's not permanent, it's temporary. Confused, I asked, you mean all tattoos are temporary? She smiled and said, no, Liz, my tattoos are permanent. It's just my body that's temporary. So is yours. We're only here on Earth for a short while. So I decided a long time ago that I wanted to decorate myself as playfully as I can while I still have time. I'm going to read on a little bit more because this is good stuff. I love this so much, I can't even tell you. Because like Eileen, I also want to live the most vividly decorated, temporary life that I can. I don't just mean physically, I mean emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. I don't want to be afraid of bright colors or new sounds or big love or risky decisions or strange experiences or weird endeavors or sudden changes or even failure. Boom. I friggin' love that. I love that. And it's a beautiful story to highlight this point that we forget that our time on this earth is temporary. This really reminded me of Buddhism, that, everything is impermanent, constantly life is change, it's constantly in this cycle of life or death, and we forget and we delay. And I think if we honestly connected with this truth that one day we're not going to wake up, we would find that courage. We would live our gifts. We would discover those jewels that are hidden inside. And I love this chapter because it just makes you think, doesn't it? It just makes you think that, of course, we are temporary. So why not? If you are someone who loves tattoos, why not cover yourself in tattoos? If you are somebody who loves music, why not dedicate your life to making music? It might not work out. I'm not here to say it is, neither is Elizabeth, but why not try? Why not try? What have we actually got to lose? And it just reminds me of a question. If you were playing a game and you knew that at the end of the day you were going to lose, how much would you be willing to gamble? And of course, when asked this question, most people say, of course, well, I'd go all in. If I knew that I was going to lose at the end of the day, why wouldn't I play full out? Well, that's life. We're going to die. We're not going to win. We're not going to go on forever, living and living and living, at least not in this universe, at least not in this world. So why not go all in? Why not give ourselves permission? The chapter's called Permission. Are you giving yourself permission Are you really showing up and unleashing those gifts, tapping into those jewels? And one more extra, or another sort of way of thinking, which sort of comes from my own sort of coaching practice, is a question that I ask is, if you realized you were in a dream right now. So let's do this. If you realized that you were in a dream, if you just suddenly, and you may have had this, if you've ever had a dream where you realize you're dreaming, it's pretty cool. You think, oh, right, okay, I've got nothing to lose here. You know, I can afford to jump off this cliff. I can choose to, you know, grow some wings and fly. Really interesting topic. Maybe this would be a future book. I want to read up on this, what do they call it? Something, lucid dreaming. So going back to the original question, if you realized that you were dreaming, so like right now, watching this video, if you realized that this was a dream, if you realized that life was really just a dream and it was just something that you could conjure up, you could use your creativity, you could use your imagination and dream, create anything that you wanted to, what would you do? And I'd love for you to know, answer this question by leaving me a comment. What would you do if you realized that right now you were in fact dreaming? And I don't want to end on a low note, but just connect with that point I made before of, we're not going to win. You know, nothing is temporary. Our life isn't going to be permanent. It's temporary. Our body one day is not going to look like this. It's going to change. It's temporary. So end with that thought, but I'd really love to know, you know, what is your answer to that question? If you realize you were in a dream, what would you start doing differently? What would you dare to create? What would you do? So that is my third biggest takeaway from that chapter called Permission. You can probably tell I'm in my element here. I could go on and talk more and more and more about these points. But if you have a taste for this, if you are passionate about creative living, this book is ready for you. It's called Big Magic. So thank you for watching. This is the first ever video for Will's Book Club, which is going to be an ongoing feature once per month, where I share the books that have had an impact on me. I share the biggest insights so that you can just get a glimpse of what this book is about. And hey, why not go out and buy it if this is something that you think has got those cogs turning. I think a good book will almost be a bit of a catalyst, and it will just get those cogs turning in our mind. And this is what, for me, good books do. So hopefully this has been able to do that for you, get those cogs turning. Leave me a comment to the answer to that question. What would you do if you realized you were in a dream right now? And also share, have you enjoyed this? You know, how could I do better? What books, this is a good question, what books would you like me to review? Are there any personal development books that you haven't yet had a chance to read, but you think I may have done? Leave me a comment. And yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day. And I look forward to seeing you for the next book club. Take care.